Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RPA Vanguard channel. My name is Andy Menon. In this video, we are going to be talking about the data context feature of UiPath apps. Before we get any further, I would recommend that you watch the videos from the Apps and Data Service Integration series on this channel, because what I'll be showing you borrows heavily from the UiPath app built in this video series. So what is a data context, right? Simply put, a data context is a single data record holder that is bound to a UiPath control that has a data context attribute, right? And most often than not, the controls that have a data context attribute are container controls, such as a regular container or a page container. And once a data record is bound to the data context of that container, all the controls that are inside of that container will have first-hand access to that data record. So what you see here in front of you is a rough rendition of how I understand the data context feature. So starting at 1, we have the backend data service, and it contains your entity. And that entity has, say, 4 columns: ID, first name, last name, and age. And here at 2 is the app. And of course, this the red border is the page container or the main container, and inside of it is a regular container. And within that container are certain form controls, right? They are here, in this case, they are input controls. Now, the data service records are bound to a table control of this app. And when the user selects a certain record from this table control, that record is bound to the data context attribute of this container here at 4. This is a regular container, and it has a data context feature. And once that record is bound to this data context, they will be available to all the controls within this container, within this blue box here. And the record inside the data context can be accessed with this notation, which you will see in the design of the app. It will be the container name, followed by data context, followed by the name of the entity column. And by doing that, you can bind that data value to the form controls within this container. It does not necessarily have to be an input control. It could be a display control, such as a label control. A user can either update or delete that record. Remember, the definition of data context is it is a container for a single data service record. So obviously, you can only update or delete an existing record, right? So when the user initiates an update or a delete operation, the effect of that update or delete is carried back into this table control and also effected into the backend data service. For example, if this record is updated, then you will see the effect of that update visibly in this table control. You will see the record being updated here. And then when you go back into your data service, you will see that the record has been updated in data service as well. Similarly, if you initiate a delete operation, you will see that the record is removed from the data context, in which case the effect of your data context has been neutralized. And consequently, the record is removed from the table control, and it is also removed from the backend data service. What we are going to be looking at next is a new version of the app that was built during the earlier video in this UiPath Apps and Data Service series, right? Unlike the app that you saw in the past, this version of the app is a single page application, or an SPA, right? So I will first demonstrate how this app works, and then we can go under the surface and see how each of the features that use the data context have been built. Let's see how this app works. Okay, so we are now stepping into the UiPath single page application demo. And one more thing that's different this time is that I've installed this app as a client application on my laptop. And therefore, I'll be starting the app from my Windows Start menu. And this is the name of the application, UiPath Apps to Data Service single page application. And I'm going to hit start. So if your app or your client application is starting up for the first time on your laptop, you will be met with an Automation Cloud login form, and you will need to log in using the credentials assigned to your Automation Cloud account. So in this case, I have already started this many number of times, and therefore the app is directly taking me to the default page. And I will be clicking on, remember, a practical app will not have this landing page. I just put this in here for the purposes of this demo. So I'm going to click on this link. Please note that unlike the application you saw in the past, everything happens on the single page. And the other thing that I want to indicate is that the red borders you're seeing here are for demo purposes only. They will be removed in a more practical application. I just wanted to put in the red border here to indicate the fact that this is a page container and not a regular container. And consequently, whatever is running inside of this page container is a different page from this app, right? So something similar to what you saw in the schematic. The page container is red and the regular container is in blue. And that's exactly what I have done here to have more clarity on the demo of this app. This is one single page, and the focal point of this page is this table control. And above the table control is the form that is running inside a page container to search for your records. And here you will see another form showing up later, and that will also be running inside of another page container. So for the initial startup, that particular page container is invisible right now. And it makes sense because there are no records here, and therefore there is nothing much for the app to do. What I'll be doing next is I will start looking for a record. So I'm going to put in, I'm going to tab out. And here we have the records that are corresponding to my response key. Please remember, this has all been created in the previous video series, and therefore I'm not going to be going into too much detail. Now, if you see, the records have been bound to this table control, but I haven't selected any records here yet. Therefore, there's nothing here in this part of the page. Right now, I am going to select a record that interests me. For example, I have something called other, and I want to either update this record or delete this. So I'm going to select this record. And as soon as I do that, you will see that this page container is rendered visible, and there is an update form that runs inside of this page container, and the data elements of the record that I selected are available to the controls inside here, right? So obviously, when I update an existing response, I'm not going to update my response key because that does not make any sense. Obviously, it has to belong to the person who submitted this response earlier. So these are bound to label controls, right? And therefore, they are not editable. But what are editable are the other two parts of this response. Now, I can either decide to update this record, or I can segue myself into another feature to delete this record. Remember, as I said in the past, the update or delete operation is effected only to the record that has been selected. So if I select a different record, that record now becomes the target of your update or delete operation because the record selected has been bound to the data context of this form running inside of this page container. Now I'm going to go back to the last record. And this time, what I will do is I'm going to delete this record first, right? Because I want to show you how the delete feature works first. So I decide to delete this because the other activity in my response doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to delete it. And I hit delete. And watch what happens. The app has been programmed to hide the record because it believes that you're going to delete the record. Right? And therefore, the page container is hidden when you commence with the delete operation. And here, there is a confirmation whether you want to delete this record or not, right? And if you look at this page, this is the same page that we built in the previous series, but this time it is opening up in a model form. That means it is not opening in a separate page, but it is opening up in a model window above the parent app window, right? Now I can delete this record or I can decide not to, right? Let me first change my mind. I'm going to say no, close. When I do that, the application is restored back. Now let me decide I'm going to delete this, right? So I hit delete. Yes, delete. I'm going to hit delete. Now, please remember, you will see a series of pop-up messages. The reason for that is, again, the app demo, but in practice, you will probably not have those, but I have added those for the effect of demonstrating the fact that the app is actually working, right? So if I hit delete, and here you can see that the survey response has been deleted. Now, look at the state of the application. If you go back to your data control, your table control, the record has disappeared. And because the record has been removed from the data context and from the underlying data service, it has no business to appear here. And therefore, this display has been removed. So this is how the data context delete operation works. Now, let me try to update an existing record. So for the effect of, for a better effect of this demonstration, I'm going to actually go back and look for another set of records, Andy M, tab out. Okay, so here I see a separate set of records that are keyed into this response key, Andy Menon, and I'm going to identify a record. And that is this record here that says I like to work on OutSystems. I'm going to click on it. And of course, this record is available to me now. And I'm going to change this because I'm not spending even half a day on OutSystems these days. So I'm going to reduce it to 0.25. And then I'm going to hit update. There. So the response has been updated successfully. So if I click back on this record, it is available to me with the updated value, right? So this is how an update works. Also, please note that the validations of these form controls work just as they worked in the previous application. So for example, if I select something that I'm not allowed to, the only difference is that this app that has been built using the data context, everything happens on a single page, right? And the data context feature makes it easier for us to create an application such as this one. The one last demo that I would want to show you is how to create a new record. Now, remember, the new record does not have the data context feature because the data context is actually a container for an existing data service record, right? And therefore, the method of creating a new record will be the same as the methods followed in the previous apps, except that it is working in a single page application, right? Observe that there are only 3 records. I'm going to create yet another record. and we'll see what happens. New response. Remember, here again, all the validations work like they used to. And now I'm going to hit submit. There, the response has been created, and the pop-up form disappears. And if I go into my records here, you can see that the new record appears with the value databases and 0 days of the week spent on working with databases, right? So you see everything happens in a single page application. And then look at how they work and where the data context feature has been implemented.